Hey Joe, how you doing? Good evening everyone. So I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes as always. I'm just waiting for a few people to get in. Obviously I know not everybody can join in live. So I'm just going to give it a few minutes and then we will get started. I hope you're all okay tonight. Hey Bev. So we're going to do, as I said, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes anyway. We are, and obviously this will be recorded, so anybody that can't join in live can obviously watch this at a later date. You may well be watching this tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, or in the future on catch up, and that is perfectly fine. I will make sure that everything that's needed for you to be able to create what we're going to do tonight is listed, as well as I will list photographs of everything that you need to stamp out for tonight as well. I have got sheets which have got photographs of everything that you're going to need to stamp out. So I will make sure that those are listed as well. So if you are playing along after the fact, or you just want to go back and play again, you won't have to sit and go through every single thing. There will be photos available so that you'll be able to do that. I have obviously... there is quite a lot of cutting out for what we're doing tonight. So what I have done is I do have some stuff that I prepped earlier just to make it a little bit faster for me tonight, because you don't need to see me sitting here for 3 hours cutting out. Okay, so not that it's going to take you 3 hours, but just, you know, so you're aware, you don't need to see me sitting here. I'm going to go through all the steps to do what we're going to be doing tonight. But when it comes to actually piecing together, I already have some stuff cut out ready to go. So, and obviously you can pause this, you can catch up as and when you're ready to do it. You don't have to do it instantly. So you might have seen when I do new releases, one of the things that I really like to do, and I've liked to do over the last few releases, is do these black and white boards. And what I like doing, the reason I like doing them is, one, because I can see what the stamps can do other than what they were originally intended to do. And the other thing, obviously, because I'm doing it in black and white and I'm not having to worry about colouring anything in, it makes it a little bit quicker to work on. Although those of you that know me know that I do love a black and white project. So, you know, something like the black and white mandala, I absolutely love doing something like this. And the fact that it's in black and white, yes, it would look fantastic in colour, but I really love it in the black and white as well. So, but it just gives me, I like to call it not a mood board, but like a sample board, so that when I come to play with my stamps at a later date, I'm actually thinking about binding these all into folders, because I do have lots of different ones that I do with lots of different, that I've done with lots of different stamp sets. So I'm thinking I need to put these into some sort of binder so that I can use these to reference through. What can I do with those stamps? You know, how can I use them other than the way they appear to be intended? That's my thinking. Okay. So as you can see, like the stamp set, so this is TS102. This was one of the newest stamp sets. This was on the October release, and you can see it has got quite a seasonal vibe to it, which is great. But you know me, I don't like it to just be seasonal. You know, I don't like anything that is too restricted in what you can do with it. Okay, so I like to use it in other ways and see, you know, find other ways of using it. So, like I said, the first thing I did, I'm going to go between the stamp set and I'm going to refer to this board first. Because what I like to do is I like to take the flowers. So you can see on this one, I've got the main flower. So the main flower on this, it's fairly large. It's a fairly large flower. So it is, let's have a look. Let's just have a quick look. It is I'd say about 3 3/4 inches in diameter. So it's quite a large stamp to start with. However, the idea is you've got the large stamp. You've also got these individual petals. So I've done individual petals. I do this quite a lot on my stamp sets because I like to be able to extend these outwards. So you can, by using the extended petals, you'll see I've got one which is slightly smaller than the flower petal itself. There's one that's slightly larger. So it does mean that we can extend outwards. Okay, so this could actually be made fairly big. You know, you could make this to any size you like just by keep adding petals. You can also bring the petals inwards. So I've also done it, if you look at this one. So if I bring this in, if we look at this one, so this one down here in the corner, this has got the original flower in the background. And then this smaller petal is the one that's here in the middle. So it just gives this kind of double layer. So if I kind of put that back, you can see that's the flower that's sitting in behind. And then we've got the smaller petals in the middle. And then I've also got the centre. But what it also means, obviously, is that the centre that I've got here can be used with these petals as well. So we could make a completely different flower by using those that centre instead. Okay, so let's see. So we've got this one, which is the centre. So I'm literally just going to go through, hey Michelle, I'm just going to go through some of the flowers. We're not going to make a flower tonight. What we're going to be doing tonight is we are going to do the Christmas tree and we're going to do the mandala. So we're going to do those two. The flowers are something that you can play around with, which is why I'm talking about these first. So you can kind of see on this one, I've used the centre. So I've used this flower centre. I've also used just the little berries, these 3 little cluster of berries. Okay, so I've used this little cluster of berries. It's sitting on top in the middle. And then I've used the petal. So this petal is then made to make a bigger flower. Okay, so you can kind of see there's lots of different ways that you can use the different petals and the different centres to actually layer up and create different flowers. So, as I said, we are not going to do flowers tonight. That's not the purpose of what we're going to do. I thought it would be more productive tonight for us to do the Christmas tree. So show you how I made the little Christmas tree. And then I'm going to show you how I pieced together the mandalas. Now, what I've done is I've done sheets. So I've done sheets of what we need for each one. So for the Christmas tree, this is what we need to have stamped out. So this is just where I've got this here, the little berries. The little berries are literally from here. It's just the 3 little berries on their own. Okay. And I've used those, if you look at the Christmas tree, I've used those as the little baubles. Of course, once you could colour this. I'm not going to colour it tonight. I am going to do it in the black and white. But of course, you could colour these. And, then you could put it on a special Christmas card, etc. So this is my stamp sheet for the Christmas tree. This is everything that you need to stamp, okay? We've got 21 of the large petal. So we've got the large petal on the sheet. You want 21 of those, okay? We've got 1 of the smaller flower. We've got 1 of the centres. And we're going to cut this apart, the centre. Okay, we're going to cut the actual flower out of the circle. We're not going to use the circle. We're going to cut the flower out. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 of the little 3 berries. So we've got the 3 berries that are on their own, kind of to the side. And we're going to do 7 of those. Okay. Now, obviously, you could make this bigger. I've done it so that it's the same size as the one I've got on here now. Okay, we're going to make it to that size tonight. But of course, it's unlimited how big you can actually make this. We're going to start from 1 petal at the top, and I end up with 6 at the bottom. But of course, you could bring that down. You could bring that down as far as you like. Okay, but this is what we're going to do tonight. Now, what you need to be able to mount this on, as I said, I have already cut these out ready because I want to show you the Christmas tree and I want to do the mandala tonight. And obviously I have a limited amount of time that I can be live on air. So I needed to be prepped, and you don't need to watch me cutting out. Okay. So what you are going to need for the Christmas tree, you can see you need a base piece. Okay. So my base piece that I have done, I had a square of card which was 3.5 inches wide, and again I will post pictures of these with the tutorial so that you have got all of this. So 3.5 inches wide, and then it's 4.25 inches tall. Okay, and all you're going to do with that, when you've got your square of card, so you'll have, or it'll be a rectangle of card, when you've got your rectangle of card, you'll just measure halfway at the top and just do a line from the corners to the halfway point, from the corner to the halfway point. That is going to give you your base, and that is what we are going to be gluing our, we're going to be gluing our petals to. Okay, so you need that. You need to have that ready to go. Now, I know, obviously, I have not given you warning that you need to have stuff already cut out. So you could be busy doing that right now. I've got a piece of black card, which I am going to mount this onto afterwards. I just find, put it onto a piece of black card, it just makes it stand out a little bit more. You may well decide that when you make this, you're going to colour it in, put it onto a card. So, you know, you could have any colour black background. So I'm going to bring a sheet of black card over just so that as I'm doing this, morning Heather, I'm going to do this just so that it makes it a little bit obvious what I'm doing. You know, it's going to stand out against my background. I am going to bring you in just a little bit more so that you can see what I am doing. Okay, I'm going to bring you in. Now, as I said, I do have, in true British Blue Peter style, I do have some stuff that I prepped earlier. So this is just the stuff that's on that sheet. So I've got 21 of these petals. I have the flower. I have the flower cut from the circle. So that's cut from the circle. That gives me just the flower in between, because that's going to sit on top. I'm going to put that on top. As you can see, that's going to sit on top of our tree. And then I have my, what are going to be my little baubles, my little berries. Okay. And I have already, with these, because they were so small, I have already put a little bit of foam tape on the back, just to make it a little bit easier for me and a little bit quicker for you watching me. Okay, so hopefully we are good. I'm kind of looking, do we look okay? I think we look okay. So what I'm going to do, so for this, I'm going to start. So I'm going to make a start. I'm going to turn this over because I want to keep that so I don't forget what the measurements are. I want 6, so I'm going to go with 6 petals to start. Okay, so I've got 6. And what I am going to do, I know roughly, and it doesn't have to be exact because we're not going to see it, but I know roughly that's the centre. It certainly doesn't have to be perfect, but roughly that is the centre, okay? So when I'm lining these up, I'm going to start with those 2 in the middle. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So they're going to be in the middle. And they kind of, you know, they kind of sit They're sitting next to each other. Doesn't matter about the gap in between because obviously we're going to layer on top. So I'm just going to bring them down just a little bit. Let's see how much. I literally just dropped them just below. Because obviously we can trim it up. Okay, so we're just going to go on there. That's where my first two are going to go. Okay, and I'm just going to use glue for this. So I'm just going to go in. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the back. So it's just me showing you how I made the Christmas tree. So just very quickly, let's get this down. And I'm only putting some glue on the top. I don't need to put it on the bottom. It's going to be secure. Okay, so let's go in there. Doesn't have to be too accurate. You know, we're gonna play around. We're gonna layer up as long as we're stuck down. Okay. Once I've got the first two down, then I can go in with the next. So a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to come out a little bit. Okay, we want to end up. I'm going to go out on one side, a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to go out across the edge. You can play around, you can move them around. This is why I like using wet glue, because if we use wet glue, obviously we can mess around a little bit with placement. Okay, and then I can do the other side. I just find if you use wet glue as opposed to, I mean, everybody knows I love a foam pad, but obviously the problem with a foam pad is it is permanent, and once it's stuck down, that's kind of it. So with something like this, because you can play around with moving it around. Okay. So really not thinking about it too much. First row, done. And then we're just going to move up from there. So my first row, I've got 6. My second row, I'm going to go in with 5. Okay, so I've got 5 for my next. So of course, I've got 5 for my next. I've got 5 gaps in between. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where we're going to be putting our next petals. Hey, Jan. Yeah, it would make a cute Santa hat, Heather. Yeah, it would do. So, next one. So I've got 5. So I'm just going to go in. And again, I quite like to just glue at the top, because that way you can kind of lift it a little bit. You can give it a little bit of dimension. You can kind of lift up the edges. So 1, 2. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. It's not, you know, it's not rocket science. 3. 4. And I'm probably going to end up sticking this down at this rate. I'm going to stick it to my black card if I'm not careful, but you know, we'll manage. So 4, 5. And I'm just making sure that when I get to that last one, those 2 outside edges, that they're over the edge. Okay. So obviously, what's next? So we want 4. We're going to need 4 for the next row. So 1, 2. I didn't worry too much when I was stamping these. A few of these didn't stamp quite right, but you know, for what we're doing, it's fine. So I've got 4. So my next row is 4. And I just want to make sure that the ones that are at the edge are kind of, they're at the edge and they kind of come over a little bit. I don't want that straight line of that piece of card. And to be quite honest, by the time everything overlaps, the ones that are not stamped quite right are not really showing. So, hey Michelle. So, 3. And I could have just done one project tonight. So I could have literally sat here and cut everything out and probably made the Christmas tree. But I wanted to do the mandala as well. So, you know, this is why I've had to do a little bit of prep work. So, of course, so now next row, we're going to go with 3. Exactly the same. So you can see how you could build this up. So you really could just keep going and make this as big as you wanted to. So you could actually make it into quite a large tree. You know, you could fill up quite a big space. Oh. Next one. One of my biggest things when I design stamps is I want to be able to do other things. So I don't want them necessarily to be so themed that you can't do anything else with them. So this is the 2. But you can kind of see how it's come together pretty quick. The bit that takes the longest is the cutting out. And to be honest, these petals actually cut out pretty fast. They're quite easy to cut. They're quite straightforward. And then the last one, so the one on the top. Okay. So you can see we have a basic Christmas tree shape going on. And of course, you could ink all the edge of these before you decide to stick them down. That is completely up to you. I'm not going to do that tonight. I just want to, obviously, I want to get stuff done. So then I've got my flower for the top of my tree. Now, I have already put some foam pad on the back of this just to make it a little bit quicker. So let's go. Should we go there? Let's go there. Why not? So, and then my small flower, which is from, so this small flower, which is from that circle. Okay, so we've just cut out the flower that's in the centre of that. We're not using it as the circle. That is going to sit on top. And then we've got the little berries that we stamped out. So these are they're a little bit fiddly, but they're not too bad because they are already on there kind of in a cluster on their own. I've put these onto foam pads as well just to make them easy. And then we can literally go in. So as I said, I did 7 of these. And I would just look. And if you've got any little gaps anywhere, so if there's any little spaces where you can see underneath, then that's an ideal place to put your little berries. It actually doesn't take too long, you know, I say about the cutting out, but it doesn't take too long to cut out because, as I said, they are very straightforward shapes. You know, and one of the things that you could do, obviously, if you were going to do this in colour, one of the things that you could do is you could have this, you could have your card painted. So you could paint green. If you've ever done a class with me before, you know that that is one of the things that I do quite a lot. You can have a piece of painted card or even green, just green card. Yeah, that's quite a lot of leaves to cut out, Bev, I have to say. 400 leaves is quite a lot. But yes, so you can, you know, you can do, as I said as well, you can do these as big or as small as you like. So, do you know what? I'm going to move that one. Is it too late? No, it's not too late. I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to have one in the middle. So that will be my 7. They are quite straightforward to cut out, I have to say. Okay. So it's very cute. And obviously you could change the top. It doesn't have to be the flower, but obviously that's what I did for this one. What you could do, Bev, if you've got a scan and cut, do it on that. Cut your leaves out on a scan and cut. My stamps, because they are very straight edged, they're very easy to cut on scan and cut. Morning, Chelsea. So that is my Christmas tree. The only thing that I would have to do is take a little bit of card. I'm going to do this really roughly. Let's have a look. Piece of card. Because I want a little plant pot for it to go at the bottom. So I've just taken a small offcut. This is literally a small offcut of card. Let's go. We'll just cut a little pot. Don't need to worry about the top because obviously this is going to sit over. That will be fine. And I'm going to put a little bit of foam tape on that, I think. Let's see, that's my scissors. A little bit of foam tape. Just because I know that that is going to stick instantly. So then I can go in and go. There we go. It's not quite centre, but do you know what? There we go. And then I can put that, obviously, if you're working on a painted background, obviously you could do that. Okay. I'm going to put mine onto a black background. So you can see it's quite easy to build up. It's more a case, and I like that you can use your stamps in a different way, that it's not just limited to, you know, what it says on the tin. You know, it says that it's a flower, so therefore that is all that you can do with it. So, you know, to be able to make something like this from a set that looks like this, I think it's great. Thanks, Jenny. So that is the little Christmas tree. As I said, I will post, because I knew to do both of these projects, I would not have time to sit and cut them all out tonight. So I will make sure that these sheets that have got how much you need to stamp, I will make sure that those are in with the tutorial as well, so that you will know exactly what it is that you need to stamp to be able to do this. Okay, so that's the first one. I hope that you enjoyed that one. That was just a quickie. This one's going to take a little bit longer. So that is the little Christmas tree. Let's put that to one side. And then let's talk about the mandala. So let me put this to one side so it's out of the way, because I don't want to. There we go. Okay, so we've got that out the way. So what I also did was I created, let's bring this out just a little bit. I created this mandala. So I did a 12 by 12 mandala using the same stamp set. So again, using these stamp sets, and depending on what colours you used on this, you really could take it away from being something that looks seasonal to something you know, that looks like summer. It looks like, you know, you could do bright pinks, you know, you could do reds. It doesn't have to be, you know, you could do blues, purples. It doesn't have to have that seasonal vibe. And I don't think that this mandala has a seasonal vibe to it. Even though it's used the same stamps, I think this could be anything. It could be absolutely anything, okay? So I am going to put this together for you tonight. I'm going to show you how I put it together. Again, I have 2 sheets that I have stamped up, okay? I stamped them up in advance so that I could show you exactly what you need to stamp to make this mandala. And of course, you could add to this if you wanted to. You know, this is just for me to do a mandala using these stamps. You could add as much as you like to this. I am going to put this together on black card, so we'll do it on black card. And I will put, as I said, I will put photographs of these with the tutorial so that you know exactly what it is that you need to stamp to be able to create exactly the same as I'm doing now. So I hope that's good. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to put the stamps to one side. The first thing that we're going to do, though, before you even think about cutting out, is because we are working on, or I am working, because I did this on a black card background. What I did to make it easier for myself, you will notice the little berry stems. So the little berry stems could be a real pain in the neck to be cutting out. So what I did, because I have worked on a black background, one thing that I did was I coloured in some of the gaps in between, okay, so that I didn't need to worry about cutting them out, because why cut out those little pieces that you don't need to cut? Okay, you can't see it, it's on a black background. And even if it wasn't on a black background, you know, if I was doing this, I would just colour it in. I would colour it in whichever colour I wanted, because a mandala is a pattern. You know, it doesn't have to be, just because there's leaves on there, they don't need to be green. You know, just because there's berries on there, they don't need to be red. And just because there's gaps in between, it doesn't mean it has to be cut out. So if I was going to do this on a white background, I would probably colour those bits in between in a different colour, and then it would make it look like it was part of the pattern, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put this to one side, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So we've got, there's 16. There's 16 of these stems, okay, berry stems, okay? So I've got 14 on this page, I've got 2 over here, okay? And what we're going to do is, with a black pen, so I'm going to bring you in and just show you on one. Let me bring you in a little bit. Just for a minute. I'll just show you on one what I am going to do, what I am going to colour in, okay? And let me put my glasses on, because otherwise I'm going to make a real mess. Okay, so all I'm going to do, black Sharpie, black gel pen, black paint pen, whatever you have, okay? I'm just going to go in. There's these little bits in between the leaves and the berries. And I am just going to go in and I am going to colour those in black. Okay, there's a little bit there in between. Let's just do that. Just the bits that are in between, so that when we cut out, we've only got to cut around the edge. We don't have to worry about cutting all of that inside out as well. Besides the fact, if you're anything like me, I'm not great at cutting out. I do quite a lot of cutting out, but I'm not great. And what tends to happen is I'll get right near the very end. These are quite thin, the stems are quite thin, and I'll cut something off, because that's what I'll do, okay? So you can kind of see I've literally just coloured in between. So when I'm cutting these out now, I will cut just around the very outside, just around this very outside of the image. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Rather than having to worry about these little bits in the middle. Okay, so when they are cut out, they are going to look like, I can take these out now because I was worried I was going to lose something. I still don't know that I haven't lost something. So when they are cut out, this is what I end up with. And they are actually quite straightforward to cut out. Okay, they're not difficult. And I really am not a great fussy cutter. But you can see I've coloured in those middle bits. And of course, when it's against that black background, it doesn't really show. And like I said, if I was going to do it in colour, I would just colour them a different colour and I'd make it part of the pattern. Because it's the same on each one. I would just make it part of the pattern. Okay, so that's what I'm going to end up with cutting out. It just makes it a lot easier when it comes to doing your cutting. Okay, I was only going to show you one of them. I'm sure you don't need to see more than that. Okay. And as I said, I will put these sheets in the group with the tutorial so that you can see exactly what you need to stamp. So I'm going to put that to one side. I have my mandala. So let's go with a nice clean one. Let's not, no, do you know what? No. It's a sample. What am I worried about? Right, so I have already, so everything that was on that sheet, I have cut out ready to go. Now I could, should I? Definitely, Michelle. So I'm gonna work out, and when I say I'm gonna work out roughly where the centre is, I am literally roughly where the centre is. I'm going to corner, but as you can see, my ruler's not long enough, so I'm just kind of lining it up. I'm not too stressed. Okay, so I know roughly it's there. It's not perfect, but roughly that's where it is. I could use my petal shaping tools. In fact, I think I did on my original. I'm not going to do that tonight because it would take forever. I'm just going to, just curl the edges a little bit. And I'm going to be using, so I'm going to be using foam pads and I will be using glue. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of both. So first one, let's get, and I like to put, so when I do this, I like to either use foam pads or glue, but just in the middles of things, or just where it's going to be stuck down so that everything else is loose, because then it means that everything can be slotted in around. You don't have to be worrying about something already glued down. Okay, so I'm going to put this down. So this is roughly in the middle. It might not be exact, but it's roughly, and for the purpose, obviously you can be a little bit more careful, and for the purpose of what we're doing tonight, that is good enough for me. Okay, so I've got this one down first. I'm then going to go in with one of my flowers. Again, maybe I'll curl them upwards a little bit this time to make it stand out a little bit. This might not be exactly the same as my original, but I'm just going to have a little play. So let's get another bit of foam tape. I do like playing around, and I like, when you cut them out like this and you play around. So I'm going to go so that the petals from this has got 8 petals, this has got 8 petals. So I'm going to go that my petals sit in between. Okay. So hopefully you can kind of see. They're not going to be exact because they're drawn by hand, but near enough. Okay, let's put that one there. What else have we got? I'm sure. Let's see. This is where I probably realise I've lost something, or, because this is what happens when you've got lots of tiny pieces. No, so that is my centre. So again, that is the centre of that circle, and maybe upwards a little bit again. As I said, if you've got petal shaping tools, you could spend time doing that. I'm going to do all of these ones on foam. I'm going to do them on foam pads, and that way it's instant, they're stuck down, and I've got a little bit of dimension going on in the middle then. And of course, you could have all these coloured first in all different colours and then play around and see what you can come up with. So that's my first round, okay? So that is my centre now. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to take 8 of the stems. So let's grab 8. So remember, we have 16 of these. So I'm going to go with 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we've got 8 of them, okay? So what I'm thinking is I'm going to kind of come in between each petal and just bring it down so that the stem is sitting in between. I'm hoping you can see that the stem is sitting in between each petal, okay? And if it means that I need to trim off the end to fit it in, then I'll do that. And if I don't need to, well, then that's great, okay? So you can kind of see I'm just going to go in and I'm bringing it so that the leaves are just above the curve of the petals. So they sit really snug within the shape of the petals and within the shape of each other. So you can kind of see they kind of sit nicely within each other as they go round. I think that looks quite cool. So what I'm going to do with that is those ones are going to be, I'm going to glue those. I'm not going to put those on foam. Or should I put them on foam? I glued them last time, but I'm wondering. No, do you know what? Let's glue them. Come on. Come on. I do like changing my mind. I'm terrible. So, and I am just going to put a bit of glue on those bottom leaves. I'm not even going to worry about the stem. The stem's going underneath the petal. I'm not even going to worry about that. Just a little bit on the bottom leaves, those bottom 2 leaves, okay? Then I can slide that in. I've not got to worry about smearing glue. I can put it in position so I know that it's where I want it to be. And just push it down. And what I know now is that this is still open. So if I want to slide anything under there, I can do that too. Okay. So again, I'm just going to go around all of them, a little bit of glue just on those bottom leaves. Okay. Nothing more. And do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to slide it in, get it in position. So I'm happy with where it is. And then just push those down. Okay. And then we'll go all the way around doing the same thing. So glue, glue. I love to do this. I could do this. Literally, I could do this all day. So I've got a little bit of resistance there because I believe that's where my foam pad is. So I am literally just going to very tip of that stem I've just trimmed off just so that when I slide it in, I can get it into position. Perfect. And the same there, I can kind of feel a little bit of resistance. So just the very end of that stem, just a tiny bit, a little snippet. But as I said, the fact that we have put the pad only in the middle, and the same with the glue, we're not putting the glue right onto everything. It just means that you've got a little bit more flexibility to move things around, put things underneath. Just makes your job a little bit easier. We've all done it. We've glued something down and then decided that we wanted to put something else there and it's too late. So, okay. I'm hoping that you are all going to have a go at this. And as I said, if you've got a scan and cut or something like that, one of those type machines, it's going to make your life even easier. I'm not the biggest, you know, people don't really believe me when I say it, but I'm not really the biggest fussy cutter, but I love creating projects where there's a lot of dimension and there's a lot of cutting out. So it's kind of necessary evil. And I like that I can see the stems. The stems are showing through on the, in between those leaves. So that's really cool. So it's giving it another pattern. Okay, so last one. As we said, it doesn't have to be, you know, nothing has to be perfect. This is just, we're just playing. We're playing and we're seeing what does it do? How does it look? You know? So that's that round. So that looks, I mean, that looks pretty cute already. And I think that that would actually make a really cool large flower for, you know, for a project. So, you know, if you imagine, so obviously I didn't do this on the original, but if you imagine, you know, if I went in between with that as well, we're not going to do that today, but if I went in between, that would look pretty cool as well. You know, or even brought it out a little bit. You can see, like, you could do lots of different things. When you've got all these cut out and ready, you could do all sorts of things with them. But we're not going to do that because we're going to stick to what we did originally. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take, I've got 8 of the large petals that we stamped out. I'm just going to give them a little curl. Just so that they, because if I give them a little curl, they're going to stand up from the page a little bit. Again, if you've got petal shaping tools, you could really take your time once you've coloured, if you want to colour, obviously. We could take our time and do that. If you kind of imagine as well, this is never ending. You could, you know, you can really build this out and build this up. Because if you're cutting out pieces as well, obviously you can just keep layering and just keep going. Let's just make sure I have got all 8 and I haven't dropped something somewhere. So how many is that? 2, 4, 6. So I've got another 2 here somewhere. This is number 7. Ah, there we go, number 8. You always worry when you cut stuff out. How often do you lose a little piece that you know was there? Because I know I do. I do that all the time. So I've literally just curled the edges. So what I'm going to do is they are going to go, so they're going to go under here. And I'm going to line them up so that they go in between and underneath down to where this leaf is, this small leaf. Let's just, we'll put it down first. And it just means that we've put it in the same place on each one. I'm just using a reference. It doesn't have to be that reference. You could just do it that you know it's in behind the berries, and that's fine. As long as you do the same thing on the same reference point on every single one, that means it's going to be in the same place. So I'm just going to put them down first. I don't like to stick things down instantly. I like to put things down and then I like to review what I've done and decide if I'm happy with that. So I'm looking at that. Am I happy with it? Yeah, I think so. I think that looks quite cool. I think that one as well I am going to do with glue. So I'm going to do the same thing with these. I am only going to glue the very end, because that way if I decide that something needs to slide in behind, whatever I want to do with it, I then know that I can do that. Okay, so I've done that and then just pushed it down. And I'm going to do that all the way around, so I'll do that on all of them. And I'm just making sure that they're to the same level and roughly the same distance. They might not be exactly the same distance because I've done it by hand, you know, and when you do things by hand and by eye, you know, you're not measuring things. So I can only do it as much as is possible by eye, and nobody's going to notice unless you point it out. So if it's not quite right, they really are, Helen, I think they really are. Like the black and white, I mean, this would look stunning in colour, of course, but I do like doing the black and white. I have a real thing for black and white anyway. I love black and white projects. I love black and white stamped images. So I think it's very, very stunning because I just think it really does stand out. Just go around, just make sure, because I'm using tacky glue, you have to kind of give it a minute to stick. Let's just make sure it is sticking. Give it a little push. The biggest thing with these, obviously, is the cutting out. Once you've got pieces cut out, and as I said, if you've got a scan and cut, and you can have that done for you, you can literally stamp stuff and have that done for you, then obviously that time would be taken away. You know, the cutting out time. I have got a scan and cut, and I still end up cutting out things by hand. But, as I said, cutting out's not my favourite thing, but the end result, it's where the end result comes in. Okay, so one more. Under there. There we go. So let's just make sure they're stuck down, because I don't want to be putting anything under those until I know that they're stuck. There we go. How pretty. I am loving on this one that you can see the white of the stem, and I didn't do that on the original. On the original, you'll see well, you can probably see it just in the camera, but I added extra petals on the original, and you can't see in between. But I'm really liking that you can see the stem showing. Yeah, I think there's so many variations that you could do with this, Michelle. I think there's so many variations. You know, this is black and white. As you said, this is black and white. You could do black and white and just pick one colour. You know, I love black, white and red. I love black, white and pink. I like black, white, grey and pink. You know, it works. When you've got black and white, any colour is going to work. So, you know, you can certainly do that. And like you said, and full on colour, a full on rainbow of colours. You know, maybe start at the centre with your red. So you could start red, orange, yellow. You could go into green. You could go into turquoise. And as you're moving out, you could go into your rainbow of colours so that you end up from the centre outwards, you get a rainbow. That would be really stunning. Or you could do a rainbow that goes around. You know, you could start. You've got 8 sections. You could start. You know, red, yellow, orange, green, blue, purple, pink, and you could go around that way. So there's lots of variations of things that you could do. So what I'm going to do next, we've only got we're not. You know, we're doing good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the other 8 of the stems that I already cut out and coloured. So I'm going to grab those. And I want to just place them this time because we have these flowers. These flowers are going to go in between. Okay, so I want to make sure that I get everything lined up properly before I stick anything down. I don't want to stick anything until I know that everything is, you know, is in the right place and that it's going to work. Okay, so we'll go in. And what I'm going to do with these are going to be slotted underneath. So what I'm probably going to have to do is I'm probably going to cut the stem off on this one. Yeah, a red frame would look great. Yeah, a red frame would look great with it as well. And ombre, yeah. Ombre would look fantastic. There's so many ideas. Like once you start, there really are so many ideas, so many different things you can do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath with my next one because I want to bring these stems out a little bit further because they're more delicate than some of the other shapes. So I am going to trim. I'm going to trim some of the stem down, probably by about half. So you can kind of see I've done it by about half. It's going to sit in behind anyway. You're really not going to see it, so it's not going to matter, okay? But I just need to figure out, you know, how far down it's going to go. And obviously, I've already glued it down here. So sometimes the stem is just going to catch. It's not going to work. And as I said, I like to place everything before I stick anything down. I like to see exactly where everything's going. I like to make sure that it's all going to fit. And then I will glue once I'm happy. So I'm just going through all of those stems first of all. Let's just put them in. Make sure that I'm happy with where they're going and that they fit. And that those flowers are going to fit in between because I want those flowers to sit in between. Okay. And you can add, you know, you could add white pen to this. You could add gold pen to this. I think on my original I added a little bit of white pen. So you can see I'm putting those down. So now I've got those down, just sitting there. I can go in with these and make sure that things are going to fit in between. And if I need to move things a little bit, obviously now I can. Whereas if I've already stuck stuff down, you kind of screw yourself over, don't you, really? You end up making a big mess. So, and I'm kind of going so that the tip of this petal is sitting in between those two petals. So you can see they kind of sit in between. And I like it because it gives a nice negative space pattern in between. So as I said, we'll just go in. I'm just going to put them down first and just make sure that they fit before I glue anything. I think I'm going to glue the stems again, but I think these are going to be on foam. I think the flowers are going to be on foam. So, and of course you can do them exactly the same. You can make sure the flowers are turned exactly the same way if you want. I'm not that worried, as long as I can fit them all in the space that I've got, then I am happy. Am I happy with that? I think so. Everything fits. It's nice and rounded. And even though, you know, bear in mind, I didn't measure too well that centre. It's pretty centred. It's pretty centred. So let's do it. I'm not going to move anything off. I'm just going to do it as I go. Okay, so I'm just going to grab, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to glue. I'm just going to glue those lower petals. Okay, I don't need any more than that. So now I can go in and go, okay, that is going to sit. Where's it going to sit? It's going to sit there. Okay, so now I know where it's going to sit. I can do the same on all and just attach. I'm going to sit down. And I like, because we're not because we're not gluing everything, you've got this kind of 3D effect anyway. Everything's coming away from the page rather than sitting dead flat. So you really can, you can add, you know, you could do lots and lots of different ones of these. Lots of different ones, lots of different configurations. Obviously for tonight, I've literally just copied what I did before because that's the easiest thing. You know what happens, you try and be clever and do something different and you know it would have gone horribly wrong. So better to just do what you already know. But you can imagine, you really can just do so many different configurations of these. I think I'm going to have to try one coloured. I'm going to have to do one coloured just to see, I think. Just to see how it would look. It makes it as well. Yeah, I love the black and white too, Rachel. But because I always do these in black and white, because obviously for a sample, it's easy because I don't have to, you know, I can do the sample without having to spend hours colouring in. But I do think this one in particular, I think could look quite stunning with some sort of colour going on in there as well. I might have to do one at some point. I'm just going in. Oh, that's it. That's all the way around there. So now it's the flowers in between. So I'm going to, as I said, I'm going to do those on foam. So I'm going to give them a little curl upwards, I think. Let's make them stand out a little bit more. Why not? I'm not going to add colour to this one tonight because I have to play around. I can't just do that. I have to play around and decide what I'm doing. And now I've stuck things down as well. It would be a bit awkward to get in there. So I'm just going to curl these and then we'll get those down on foam. And I think if I can find a white pen that works, I'll add a little bit of white pen as well, just to finish it off. But I just think, especially with, so, you know, that centre flower, the large flower that's on that stamp set is quite chunky. It's quite chunky stamp. But I just think by adding the smaller berries, the stems, so that it looks like foliage, I just think it gives it a much more delicate look. And even, like I said, even leaving that space in between on this one so that you can see the stem running through to the centre, I think gives it a very different look. Because the other one looks a little bit more chunky than this one. Just from doing that one thing. I hope you do have a go at doing one of these. You know, whether it be the Christmas tree, whether it be the mandala, or whether it be both, or whether you end up having to go and doing a few different ones. The flowers, you can always play about with mounting up the flowers. You know, the flowers can be mounted up in countless ways. But something like this is a little bit different. So I'm going to go around. As I said, I'm going to do foam tape on these ones so that they stand up a little bit. As I said, I want to do it so that it's in between. So I'm kind of doing it that two petals are going either side of this petal. You've just put your order in, Helen. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. So I'm going to go around, do all of these. And then I think it's going to be white pen time. As I said, we could add lots more. You really could go to town and add as much or as little as you like. You know, if I wanted to go in now and maybe I could use, you know, if I wanted to add some colour, maybe I could use the little flower that's in that central circle, and maybe, you know, maybe I was going to do it in pink. It could sit over the top of the black and white because obviously it would stand out, you know. I haven't really got a favourite foam tape, Joe. It's just what I can get hold of. The only thing I like is I don't like my foam tape to be any deeper. I don't like it to be any deeper than 2 mil. 1 mil or 2 mil is perfect. I think anything more than that, because I add a lot of dimension. I like adding a lot of dimension. And I think 1 to 2 mil is enough because I add multiple layers. So if you imagine the centre, I've got the first flower is on foam tape, the second flower is on foam tape, the top flower is on foam tape. So I can end up with quite a lot of bulk. And obviously if you're working in, it doesn't matter if you're working on a project, but if you're working in a journal, anybody that's seen my journals knows that they are quite bulky. So I don't particularly have a favourite. I just like something that's not too thick. So we're almost there. Let's get these down. How cool does that look? But you can see what I'm saying. So obviously we've got all this in black and white now. If I wanted to add some colour into it, I could actually go back in, stamp some more stuff and go in and add some stuff in colour over the top because it would stand out. Whereas obviously you have to be a little bit careful when you're adding more black and white because it can disappear. One thing can disappear into the other. I love a bit of 3D, Nick. Okay, so one more. I think this is the last one. So one more. And then I think that's going to be it as far as stamps go. Because that's pretty much the same stamps as I used the first time on my original sample. So if I just bring that in, you can see the only difference between the original sample and the new one is the flower in the middle. So what I did on this one was I used one of the smaller petals. So if I kind of move this back, you can kind of see I used the larger flower and then I used that smaller petal. So it was this petal from the set and I layered that up on top. So it's a much more solid flower on that one. But and I like both, but I am kind of liking that on this one you can see it makes it look very delicate where I can see the gap in between and I can see the stem running directly into the centre. Okay, so let me see if I can find a white pen that actually works, because you know how difficult that can be at times. And I'm just going to add, you can see on my original, I just added some white gel pen dots here and there. I'm going to do the same on this because it's going to give it a nice delicate look. So let's have a look. What have we got? Where could I go? So let's see, what did I do on the original? Okay, let's go. I can go in between. So I'm kind of thinking, let's go in between. 1, 2, 3. And I'm doing, you can kind of see, I do them a little bit smaller each time. It really doesn't have to be. They could all be the same size. And I'm going to do that. So I'll do that on all of them. And obviously when it comes to white pen, you know what it's like. We can add as much or as little as we like because we get a bit carried away, don't we? I certainly do with my white pen. So So that looks good. Let's go all the way round. But you can see it gives a little bit of a bit more delicate look. Just adding those little dots in. And it helps to fill out some spaces. So if you're looking and you've got some spaces that need filling out, you can use your white pen to fill in the spaces. And of course you could do gold, you could do silver, you could do, you know, any kind of metallics. I'm just doing 3 little dots, each one a little bit smaller than the other. And I'll just go all the way round. I just think pen work, to me, pen work finishes everything off. Whatever project you're doing, I think adding a little bit of pen, just, you know, it just helps. And that one there. So then I can have a look, right, where else? Where else? So I'm kind of thinking, I have a gap. So on each one, I've got a little gap here. So I'm kind of thinking, why not? Why not just go into that gap? And what I always do is I check all the way round. Like, have a look. See where your gaps are, where you can fit things in. But on each of these, to the right of that, I've got a little gap. So why not? Some are a little bit bigger than others. As we said, you're making something that is, you're doing it by hand, you're doing it by eye. And obviously, the thing about doing something by eye, it's not ever going to be perfect. Go in. Some of my gaps in between were a little bit bigger than others, but that's fine. Oh, I might have to check that out, Heather. We always want a good white pen, don't we? We always want to find a good white pen. What else could I do? I'm kind of thinking, so even though I'm kind of thinking I've got this space up the side, let's just make sure, have I got that space up the side of all of those? Yes, I have. So what I could do is go up. So I'm following that space. 3 little dots. Why not? So follow the side. And all you're doing, and as I said, you can carry this on as much as you like. You can add as much or as little as you like. But this is just adding little details. And obviously the more you add, the more detailed it's going to be. And everyone's going to be different, because I didn't do this on the original. So I'm kind of looking now and seeing different things than maybe I saw the first time. It's cute. That looks cute. I like that. What else? What else? What else? What else? So again, I'm seeing a line here. So maybe I'll do the same there. And then that's kind of following that line around as well. I will zoom in a little bit afterwards, and I will take photos afterwards as well, because obviously I get that I have to have the camera a certain way out so that you can see the whole thing. The only problem with pen work for me is I don't know. I'm never sure when to stop. Night, Helen, no problem at all. So, is there anything else, anywhere else? I'm thinking. Okay, I'm going to go one more. I'm going to go one more, and that's going to be in. I'm going to do one in here, so in between here, I'm going to do one. I've got that space on all of them, obviously, so why not? And then I think that's going to be it. As I said, we could add colour. I am not going to do that tonight because we will be here all night. But you can certainly do this and add colour. I think that might be it. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I think that looks really pretty. So you can see a little bit, as I said, it's a little bit different. Thanks, Dawn. So even though, you know, I have, apart from these little petals, I've cut out exactly the same thing, but they do look slightly different. They both have slightly different vibe to them. Who knew, eh? So we've got that. And let's bring our Christmas tree back in again. Let's put our Christmas tree in the middle because we don't want to miss him out. He was very cute. So I hope that you enjoyed that tonight. I hope, and obviously if you are watching on catch up, you will have the bonus that obviously you can stop and start and you can really take your time doing your projects. As I said, I will make sure that I put the stamp sheet. So I will make sure that I put photos of these with the tutorials as well, so that you have got exactly what you need to be stamping, rather than having to sit and figure out how many of this and how many of that. I will make sure that I put those in the group so that you've got those. You're welcome, Heather. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I hope I haven't kept you too long. I hope that you've learned something. Any questions at all, please do not hesitate to post a question. You know, tag me in it, post a question. If you're going to have a go, do tag me in those as well. I love to see what you've done. So do share. And even if you want to have a go at making the flowers, like we did originally. So even if you want to have a go at making some of these, I will put pictures of these as well. And you will be able to see exactly what I've done. You'll be able to figure out, which parts I've used and, which parts I've cut out. Because once you start looking at the stamps, you'll be able to see it. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I hope to see your lovely creations online. And I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.